You wake up tomorrow morning, let's say it's 652. The alarm fired. You hit snooze or you didn't. Maybe the phone was in your hand before your eyes fully opened. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, you plant your feet on the floor. And in those first 5 minutes, before you've made a single deliberate choice, your body is already executing a program. A biological program shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution. Your heart rate is accelerating. Your core temperature is climbing. And your stomach, that hollow muscular organ tucked in the upper left quadrant of your abdomen, it's already running, already secreting, already expecting something. And the question that should matter to you, the one almost nobody asks, is what are you about to hand it? I want to be straight with you from the beginning. This is not a video about detox teas or alkaline water or anything that gets explained over soft acoustic guitar. I find that content annoying because the real biology of what your stomach and gut are doing at 6:52 in the morning is genuinely fascinating, and nobody is talking about it honestly. What I want to do today is take you through the actual mechanisms. The hormone cascade, the acid chemistry, the 38 trillion microorganisms currently living in your digestive tract who have been in overnight maintenance mode and are waiting to be fed. And when I'm done, the answer to what you should eat first in the morning is going to feel less like a recommendation and more like an obvious conclusion. Because you'll understand the machinery. When you understand why a rule exists, the rule becomes impossible to forget. And this particular why, once it clicks, changes the way you see every morning you have left. So let's start at the foundation. The first thing you need to understand is something called the cortisol awakening response. Cortisol gets a bad reputation because people hear stress hormone and assume it's the enemy, something to blunt or suppress. That framing is wrong. Cortisol is essential. It mobilizes glucose. It regulates immune activity. It drives alertness. It manages inflammation. You would not function without it. Here's what happens every single morning in your body without exception. In the 30 to 45 minutes immediately following waking, your cortisol levels surge by somewhere between 38 and 75%. That range comes from decades of careful measurement. Researchers like Stefan W. Stad and Clemens Kirschbaum spent years characterizing this response, and what they established is that it is one of the most reliable, reproducible hormonal events in the entire 24-hour biological cycle. It fires in roughly 77% of healthy adults regardless of sleep quality, stress level, or day of the week. Monday, Saturday, vacation, doesn't matter. The response runs. Now, why does this matter for your stomach specifically? Because cortisol doesn't just light up your brain. It activates the entire digestive system. It stimulates gastric acid secretion. It signals the enteric nervous system, which I'll explain shortly, to increase motility. It essentially broadcasts to your gut, we're awake. Day is starting. Get ready to receive. But here is the piece that almost nobody talks about, and it is the piece I most want you to hold on to. When cortisol remains elevated for an extended period, it suppresses the mucus layer that coats the inside of your stomach wall. To understand why that's a problem, you need to understand what that mucus layer is actually doing. Your stomach produces hydrochloric acid at a pH of roughly 1.5 to 3.5. For perspective, lemon juice is around pH 2. Battery acid sits at pH 0. The fasting stomach is operating at a level of acidity that most people have never stopped to consider. That acidity is necessary. It destroys pathogens before they can colonize your gut. It activates the protein-digesting enzymes called proteases. It ionizes dietary minerals so your small intestine can absorb them properly. The acid is not a design flaw. It is the design. But the only thing standing between that acid and the actual cellular tissue of your stomach wall is the mucus layer. That barrier. That buffer. And cortisol suppresses it. So every morning before you put a single thing in your mouth, your cortisol is at the highest point it will reach all day. And the protective lining of your stomach is under more metabolic pressure than at any other moment in the 24-hour cycle. That is your baseline. That is what you wake up into every day. And then most people immediately make coffee. I'm going to spend real time on coffee in a few minutes because it's a genuinely complicated topic with nuance on both sides, and I don't want to flatten it. But here's the essential mechanism you need first. Caffeine directly stimulates cortisol release. This has been demonstrated consistently across multiple studies. When you drink coffee in that first 30 to 45-minute window after waking, when your cortisol is already in the middle of its natural morning spike from the awakening response, You are stacking a second cortisol stimulus directly on top of the first. Two spikes compounding, which means the suppression of your stomach's protective mucus layer intensifies further, and you have simultaneously introduced an acidic beverage. Coffee has a pH around 4 to 5, into a stomach that is already at maximum acid concentration with a compromised barrier and no food present to serve as a buffer. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has communicated in his research discussions that the optimal timing for caffeine is 90 to 120 minutes after waking, specifically to sidestep this cortisol compounding mechanism. Is 90 minutes practical for everyone on every morning? Realistically, no. But knowing the mechanism is different from just knowing the rule. When you understand what's actually happening, you can make an informed decision rather than just following someone else's instructions. That's the goal here. Let me walk you through the actual chemistry of your empty stomach because I think most people have never genuinely considered it, and it's worth understanding. During sleep, your stomach empties. The food from dinner has been processed and moved through over the course of 7 or 8 hours. By morning, the stomach is functionally clear, and the gastric acid inside it is at full working concentration, pH 1.5 to 3.5. Your body has been managing this safely overnight through the mucus layer, through the bicarbonate your stomach wall secretes to neutralize acid in the immediate vicinity of the lining, and through the extraordinarily rapid turnover of stomach lining cells, which replace themselves roughly every 3 to 5 days. That is one of the fastest cellular renewal rates in the entire body. The system is built to handle corrosive acid, but it is built to handle it when its protective mechanisms are functioning properly and being supported. Here is where warm water enters the picture, and I recognize this sounds almost disappointingly simple, but the biology behind it is more elegant than it first appears. When you drink warm water on an empty stomach first thing in the morning, several distinct things happen simultaneously. The water dilutes the most concentrated surface layer of fasting gastric acid. It stimulates your stomach wall to produce fresh mucus, essentially replenishing and reinforcing the protective lining. It activates peristalsis, the rhythmic muscular contractions that drive material through your digestive tract. And it rehydrates your entire digestive system after 7 to 8 hours without any fluid intake. There is a study published in the World Journal of Gastroenterology demonstrating that warm water specifically enhanced gastric motility compared to cold water. Subjects showed measurably improved gastric emptying rates and reported less digestive sluggishness. Temperature is relevant here. Warm fluid relaxes the smooth muscle of the digestive tract in a way that cold fluid does not. Cold water can actually trigger a mild vasoconstrictive response in gut tissue, temporarily reducing blood flow to the digestive lining. Warm water produces the opposite effect. Think about it this way. Your digestive system has been in overnight maintenance mode for 8 hours. You wouldn't take a cold high-performance engine and immediately push it to maximum load the second you turn the key. You let it warm up. Let the fluids circulate. Let everything reach operating temperature. Water is the warm, up your digestive system has been missing every morning. The dehydration angle also deserves emphasis. You lose between half a liter and a full liter of water overnight through respiration and normal perspiration. You wake up mildly dehydrated every single day without exception. Your digestive enzymes, the proteins responsible for chemically breaking down food, require water as a medium to function. An enzyme operating in a dehydrated environment is like a surgeon in a blackout. The skill is there. The instruments are there. The conditions make effective work impossible. 1 to 2 glasses of water, warm or room temperature, before coffee, before food, before looking at your phone. This is not a wellness trend or a morning ritual lifestyle choice. It is a basic act of biological maintenance that costs 3 minutes. Now I want to spend real time on the microbiome because I think this is where the morning nutrition conversation becomes genuinely exciting, and it's the part that most people either haven't heard or haven't heard explained in terms that actually land. Right now, inside your gastrointestinal tract, you are carrying approximately 38 trillion microbial cells. That number comes from a landmark 2016 study by Ron Sender, Shai Fuchs, and Ron Milo at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel. Published first in Cell and then in PLOS Biology, their work corrected the long-standing and widely repeated claim that you carry 10 bacterial cells for every 1 human cell. The actual ratio is close to 1 to 1. Roughly 38 trillion bacterial cells alongside approximately 30 trillion human cells. By cell count, you are essentially half human and half microbial, and the vast majority of those microbial cells are concentrated in your large intestine. These organisms are not passengers. They are not neutral hitchhikers in a system that works fine without them. They are running metabolic processes that your body literally cannot run alone. They synthesize vitamin K. They produce several B vitamins, including B12 precursors. They ferment dietary fiber and generate short-chain fatty acids that fuel the cells lining your colon. They calibrate and regulate the development of your immune system. Approximately 70% of your immune cells reside in the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, the immune infrastructure threaded through your gastrointestinal wall. And they produce neurotransmitters, including somewhere between 90 and 95% of your body's total serotonin. I want to pause on that number because I think people hear it and immediately move past it without fully registering what it means. Between 90 and 95% of your serotonin is produced in your gut, not your brain, your gut. The cells responsible are called enterochromaffin cells, and they are embedded throughout the lining of your digestive tract. Their activity is directly shaped by the health and composition of the microbial community living around them. This means that conversations about mood, about cognitive clarity, about the sensation of sustained focus versus the experience of unexplained mental fog, these conversations necessarily include the gut. It is not adjacent to those topics. It is central to them. Let me introduce some of the individual species in this community because they are not an undifferentiated mass. They are distinct organisms with distinct functions and distinct nutritional requirements, and understanding them makes the morning feeding question far more concrete. Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium are the most extensively studied beneficial gut bacteria in human research. Their names appear on probiotic labels because decades of clinical work have associated higher populations of these species with improved digestive regularity, reduced incidence of antibiotic-associated illness, and meaningful modulation of immune responses. They ferment specific types of fiber, produce lactic acid, and generate a chemical environment that suppresses pathogenic species. Akkermansia mucinifera has attracted significant research attention over the last decade. It lives specifically in the mucus layer of your gut and uses mucus components as its primary energy source. This initially sounds as though it would erode the protective lining, but what actually happens is that Akkermansia's feeding activity continuously stimulates your gut to regenerate fresh mucus. The organism's presence drives renovation through its own maintenance needs. Research from Patrice Canny's laboratory at UC Louvain in Belgium has linked higher Akkermansia abundance with lower rates of metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and obesity. Faecalibacterium prosnitzi may be the most important gut bacterium that most people have never heard of. It is among the most abundant species in the healthy human gut and one of the primary producers of butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that is the principal energy source for colonocytes, the cells that line your colon. Butyrate reduces intestinal inflammation, reinforces the gut barrier, and has demonstrated anti-tumor properties in cell studies. In individuals with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, Faecalibacterium prosnitzi populations are almost invariably found at dramatically reduced levels. Its role is not decorative. It is structural. All of these organisms, all 38 trillion of them, need to be fed. They have nutritional requirements. They have feeding cycles. They respond to inputs the same way any living population responds to resources. After an 8-hour overnight fast, they have been running on reserves. The first meal of the morning is the first feeding of this entire ecosystem since dinner the previous night. So the question becomes specific and answerable. What do they actually eat? They eat fermentable fiber. Specifically prebiotic fiber, the kind your own digestive enzymes cannot break down, but that your gut bacteria can ferment and metabolize. Fructooligosaccharides found in garlic, onions, and leeks. Beta-glucan found in oats and barley. Inulin found in chicory root and Jerusalem artichokes. Pectin found in apples and pears. Resistant starch found in slightly underripe bananas, in legumes, in potatoes that have been cooked and then cooled. When these fibers arrive in your large intestine, the bacteria ferment them, and the fermentation generates short-chain fatty acids, butyrate, propionate, and acetate primarily. Butyrate fuels the colonocytes lining your colon. Propionate travels to the liver, where it participates in glucose regulation. Acetate circulates systemically and influences appetite signaling in the brain. You eat the fiber. Your bacteria eat the fiber. Your bacteria produce the compounds that maintain your colon health, stabilize blood sugar, and modulate hunger. The entire cascade originates from a single breakfast choice. Before I tell you what morning eating should actually look like, I want to spend time on a recurring decision that appears 365 times per year. You can work with this system. Give it water, give it fiber, give it protein, give it time. Or you can work against it without fully understanding that's what you're doing. Most people have been working against it for years. Not from indifference, not from laziness, because nobody ever walked them through the biology. What I genuinely love about gut biology, what I find remarkable every time I look at it, is how quickly the system responds once you begin supporting it properly. Measurable shifts in microbiome composition have been documented in as little as 3 to 4 days of consistent dietary change. Not months, not years, days. Your gut is not carrying a ledger of past breakfast choices waiting to be balanced. It is not withholding function until some debt is repaid. It responds to what arrives now. 3 days, that is the horizon. 3 mornings of something different, and the system begins shifting. So tomorrow morning, when the alarm fires and you're sitting on the edge of the bed with the day not yet decided, before the phone, before the coffee, before any of it, remember there is a system inside you that woke up the moment you did, that has been running overnight maintenance, that is carrying 38 trillion residents who haven't eaten since the night before and are ready to do their jobs the moment you give them what they need. Give it water first.